Hey guys, Terry here again. Thanks for the few people that are watching this. It's a new project. It's not easy to get things going off the ground, especially the way the algorithm works, but it is what it is, and we're going to make the best of it. And if you've joined me or seen some of my stuff, I hope you continue to enjoy it. So today, I'm not so much as harping on verses, I want to talk about how God knows us better than we know ourselves. Even when we are not comfortable with the truth He's revealing to us, it's actually should be good news. It's a sign that we actually have an intimate understanding of um, what God wants from us, expects from us, and we have an intimate relationship with us when He can tell um, us what we're going to do before we do it, even if it's not great news. And if you're in a relationship, you've seen men and women, husband and wife, where it seems like they can finish each other's sentences. And you're like, it's a sign that they are extremely close, that they're in tune with each other. The examples that I'm bringing up today are the two where Jesus was betrayed. And the reason I'm doing that as an example is because it's a truth given to us by our Creator, we have a relationship with. And instead of trying to ingest the news in a way that is positive, because it's not positive news, it's warning of betrayal. First Judas and then Peter. They react very humanly, and that's something that you have to sort of, you want to, well, prayer and fasting, you want to meditate on that, because each of us in our relationship with our Creator, you become a Christian, you start to understand Christian concepts, the theology, the real nature of the relationship. Because again, with Christianity, there's theology. It's definitely a religion. It's more a relationship than anything else. And God's relationship with you, in a lot of ways, will be unique, intimate, and personal. And those are weird words to use. But the fact that both Judas and Peter were told in front of witnesses about their betrayals before they were betrayed gives you the degree to which the intimacy exists. And there's no other word to use. You can say, okay, they're close. Yeah, they're close. They knew each other. What I'm saying is that Jesus's understanding of their thought process, of who they were, and the details and the specifics, there's no other way to describe that. It's not a lucky guess. I know, especially there's a certain type of person that just likes to speak out of ego and say, "Oh, I know what you're going to do. You're my friend, and I knew what you're going to do. You like chocolate, so I knew when we went to the store you would choose the chocolate birthday cake that I'm getting you, or you like sports cars, so I knew that you'd like the sports car T-shirt." And that's not what Christ is saying, and Jesus is saying, and that's not what the Bible is saying. It's not just Jesus predicted them because they had those flaws, because these were apostles. They loved Jesus, but they were also very human. And it's a deeper sort of thing than just, I knew you'd make a bad decision because this is your weakness. It's simply an example of, I know you. There's a conjoining at a deeper level than just what humans regularly perceive. Okay, do you understand? It's very interesting. The first thing, of course, is the Lord's Supper example. We all know the Lord's Supper from the famous Da Vinci painting. And I'm going to start out in Matthew 26, about 19, 20. So Jesus did as the disciples directed them, and they prepared the Passover meal, or the Passover. When the evening had come, He sat down with the 12. Now as they were eating, He said, and this is Jesus speaking, "Assuredly I say to you, one of you will betray me." And they were exceedingly sorrowful, and they were upset by this. And each of them began to say to Him, "Lord, is it I?" And Jesus answered, "He who dipped his hand with me in the dish will betray me. The Son of Man indeed goes just as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born," which is very ominous for Christ. Then Judas, who was betraying Him, answered and said, "Rabbi, is it I?" And Jesus said to him, "You have said it." And so it was, you said it, not I. And think of that. Now, how is that different from, you take your wife who loves truffles to, Cheesecake Factory, and she orders, as you had predicted, truffles or whatever it is. um, Jesus understands a thought process as a thought process. Look at that, make it be silly. Jesus understands us at a level deeper than what we're consciously able to understand ourselves, and um, it's uncomfortable to have that part of yourself revealed to yourself, especially dealing with something that weighs so heavily with your spirit. And therefore it's a lot deeper and much more soul shattering to have a weakness of yourself pointed out. You know, yes, when you take your kid that likes Disney to Disneyland and they have a ball, those are obvious things. Those are very surface things, and it is indicative of a connection. What Christ is doing is delving orders of magnitude deeper in you when it's talking about betrayal, because it's not something that you would consider characteristic. That's the difference. You know, Judas had no idea that this was something that he was foretold to do and would be such a deep betrayal. And it's not that Jesus is wishing he'd never been born. It's such a painful self-realization, and especially as it plays out, that um, it makes us understand how powerful it is when you're in this relationship, and how deep it is, and what is it about us that in our fear we continue to deny Christ and go ahead with the negative prophecy that was exclaimed to him. Jesus, of course, encyclopedias ad nauseum could be written, worth of information could be written on Judas, his thought process. Was he ordained and destined to do this? Free will, all those things. And I'm not trying to talk about that. I'm simply talking about the nature of the relationship when Christ is looking at you in the eye and saying in front of witnesses, I know you're going to do this. That's not the same as, other forms of intimacy we may be familiar with, is what I'm getting at. And, there are issues that we have that we want to hide within ourselves that God sees clearly. There are weaknesses that we have that we are embarrassed of, that we want to hide to the world and ourselves, that God sees clearly. There's a mask that we like to wear from the moment we get up to the moment we go back to sleep. We have a sort of a persona that we create and craft carefully through life that God sees right through. And that is orders of magnitude deeper than, already, father, parent-child relationships and husband-wife relationships, which, again, they're intimate, but God is looking at you so clearly, like crystal clear water that you can see down to the bottom of, and he knows you inside and out. So these predictions are more unsettling, especially when they deal with things that are negative. And of course, when you're talking about the prediction in 26, where Jesus is telling Paul, you're going to betray me 3 times before the crow. Before the rooster crows. And again, it's something that when the prediction is made, they're just like, no, that's not me. There's no way I would do that. It's something that gives you pause. So I'm going to skip ahead to Matthew 26:69. And Jesus has been taken before the Sadducees, Pharisees, Sanhedrin. Jesus is on trial by the authority. Sadducees, Pharisees, Sanhedrin. I hope I'm not butchering all of that. And Peter is outside in the courtyard, and the crowd is gathering against them, and people, of course, are in this. They've been put up in a fit of rage. The people are looking for Christ's followers because, of course, there's a mob mentality going on. And famously, now Peter sat outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him saying, you also were with Jesus of Galilee. But he denied it before them all saying, I do not know who you're talking about. Okay, so that's the first failure. And when he had gone out of the gateway, another girl saw him and said to those who were there, this fellow also was with Jesus of Nazareth. But again, he denied with an oath, I don't know the man. So he's like, I swear. Like he's saying, I swear I don't know the man. I swear on the Bible, which of course the Bible didn't exist, but I give you my oath, my word, I don't know this man, And usually when people are getting passionate like that, aren't they guilty? Anyway, and a little later, those who stood by came and said to Peter, surely you are also one of them, for your speech betrays you. So in that time like now, people could tell where you were from your pattern of speech, and it gave him away. And that's when things got really crazy. And then he began to curse and swear, saying, I do not know the man. Immediately, a rooster crowed. And Peter remembered the word of Jesus, who had said to him, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. So he went and he wept bitterly. And I always found that, I find that more moving than the betrayal of Jesus by Judas, because Peter, that was, my rock, upon you I built my rock. And wasn't it Peter, the guy that attempted to walk on water? And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing what Peter could be when things were perfect. It's walking on water. St. Peter's Basilica, the level of what the Catholics call St. Peter, that connection is amazing, yet the level of where you can sink and backpedal, that's the struggle of Christianity and the struggle of mankind. Right there in that incident. And I know I probably could have done a better job of finding the verses and doing that, and it's all a little sloppy, but the point that I'm making is that the level that God is showing to remain in a relationship with us when he knows us at our darkest and our worst and our most likely to deny him, the level of love and connection that he seeks to us isn't something that we can even wrap our heads around. Peter, before Paul showed up, and even after Paul showed up, Peter was the superstar. You see what I'm saying? And not that he loved one more than another. They had different roles and things to play. And it's tough to sort of ascertain. But Peter was the church, on my rock. Do you love me? On this church, I shall build my rock. On you, I should, The importance of Peter is very, very critical. And in a lot of ways, you consider him the official leader of the disciples, of the humans who were interacting with this Messiah, this God like entity that had come down to redeem mankind and entered their lives personally. And just the level of revelation, it's uncomfortable, it's unsettling, but it's necessary because you want Christ to live in you and understand him. It's every bit as natural that Peter denied him as it is horrible. Because again, what is the separator between both in the first example and the second? Fear. God says, I know you better than you know yourself, and this is a shortcoming that you're having. You're going to deny me, you're going to betray me, you're going to do all these other things, but I still love you and forgive you. Well, before he says, I still love you and forgive you and want this relationship with you, you're frightened that he's reached that deep into you. You see what I'm saying? This isn't just a regular relationship with another human. This is someone that has pierced you on a level that isn't something that most people are prepared or even understand, prepared to wrap their heads around or even could understand. And so with that, my ultimate thing as I wrap this video up is, I think the example is God knows us better than we know ourselves. So try to run towards God. I know you know me better than I know myself. And you know that in my day-to-day or in my standing issues, in my standing obstacles, that they are, this obstacle, this obstacle, this obstacle, and this obstacle. And you know the weaknesses that I have in facing those obstacles. Less of me, more of you. Because more of me just leads to a bunch of stuff that, Judas stuff, Peter stuff, and it's not even necessary, complete betrayal, denying you 3 times before the rooster crows. None of that is even necessary. If you know me more than better than I know myself, then you know the solutions that are capable of occurring as you work through me. Dear Lord, less of me, more of you. And meditate on that, because they're in here as examples of things you don't have to repeat. You don't have to weep bitterly after denying him, when you can just say, okay, this is going to come to pass. and I know I'm going to be very afraid, and I don't have what it takes to be questioned by the mob. I know I don't have what it takes to resist the 3 coins of gold or whatever. But what can I do to run towards this problem and prevent it, and literally just hold on to the Lord so that I'm not even there when coins are offered, or I'm not even able to I don't need coins. Yeah, I'm with the guy. I'm with the man. This is going to be what it's going to be. You know, I'm running towards, and not letting the fear of the accusation, because what would have happened had Peter been grabbed? You know, well, they probably would have tortured him. It would have been more like what happened to Paul so many times. But the thing is that the pain that you think you're avoiding is going to happen anyway. A lot of times, you know, we don't like pain. We're not supposed to like pain. Run towards Christ. Run towards Christ. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the beauty of relationships, isn't it? All your dearest relationships, whether it's intimate, spouse, kids, military, whatever it is, they're not logical relationships anyway. They're intimate connections of understanding, and it's the same thing with Jesus. You're not supposed to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. Run towards Christ. Run towards Christ. We'll talk more about this in another future video. All right, thanks.